Did you know that Fallout 4 just got a totally free new DLC? Or at least it basically did thanks to the America Rising 2 mod. And yeah, earlier this week Fallout 4 basically got a full-fledged Enclave DLC, and not to spoil everything, but I legitimately think this is the best Enclave mod for Fallout 4 to ever come out, and honestly it's probably one of the best unofficial DLCs this game has ever gotten. In many ways it's almost like what you probably hoped Creation Club would end up being, but no, America Rising 2 is totally free to download right now, and it's available on both Xbox and PC. This mod hits all of the major points. It directly hooks into Fallout 4's main story, so you're beating Fallout 4 with the Enclave and taking on the familiar characters from the Institute and Brotherhood of Steel in the process. And along this journey, you're going to have tons of unique experiences, from epic battles as you try and grab control of the Commonwealth, to difficult decisions as you try and decide which path the Enclave should pursue. And perhaps best of all, the RPG elements. This mod isn't trying to make the Enclave the good guys, but instead it's a proper way to beat Fallout 4 as a totally evil faction. But as cool as a full-fledged Enclave overhaul is for Fallout 4, sadly you can't take it on the go. But I do know the perfect urban fantasy ARPG that with today's video sponsor, Zenless Zone Zero from Hoyoverse. Just like in Fallout, Zenless Zone Zero takes place in a not-so-distant future plagued by natural disaster. You'll find yourself in new safe haven cities that feature some incredibly chaotic threats and competing factions. Here you'll control tons of unique characters that really feature their own identity of unique weapon sets and skills. And it's with this where everything really comes together. The combat system's almost movie-like. The visuals tied together with background music as well as this blend of 2D and 3D aesthetics to make every single fight a visual and auditory experience as you explore your own set of new combos and synergies. And don't worry, because the combat is specifically designed to be approachable with crazy high ceilings if you really want to master it. But don't worry, as things do go beyond just combat. The city itself features a cross between futuristic urban and overt pop culture with a funky soundtrack playing in the background to keep things fresh. You occupy this disaster-ridden world as a special proxy to link your city with the mysterious disaster itself. And now it is time for you to jump in, as the second closed beta of Zenless Zone Zero is finally here. You can register now like I did through the link below to play on PC or mobile, but don't fret as this will be on console for release for a totally seamless cross-platform experience. So stop waiting and use my link down below to register for the second closed beta for Zenless Zone Zero right now on both PC and mobile. But looking back at America Rising 2, some of you may be immediately curious about the naming. Is this just a sequel to another mod? Well, yes, but also no. America Rising was one of the most popular Enclave mods for Fallout 4. This launched all the way back in 2017, but America Rising 2 is not only a continuation of that story, but also an overhaul of what was there previously. So in the early parts of America Rising 2, you may notice that some of the quests and locations are familiar. They're from the first part, but nearly all of these quests and locations were overhauled to some degree, so you'll see new details and even some new interiors or characters. So no, you don't need to play America Rising 1, and America Rising 2 is also way bigger. Once you get past that introductory Remnants questline, there is going to be a ton more content, as this is a really big mod. We're talking about a roughly 10-hour long experience here. It really is a main story replacer or main story alternative path for Fallout 4. At the start of this one, you'll be introduced to a new area of Vault 111. This was a secret government wing of the vault featuring cryopods just like we came out of. And as you would imagine, Enclave members were contained within these cryopods, and you could awake them or not. One of the pretty cool parts about this mod is it doesn't attempt to make the Enclave the good guys. And after reading the descriptions on a terminal, you can actually choose to open the pods or instead just kill all of these government members and skip the quest entirely. And it's not just here. As you play through this mod, there's going to be several points throughout this new Enclave questline where you do have the option to take them out, or even side with another Commonwealth faction to destroy the Enclave instead of siding with them. So now of course this will remove the vast majority of the mod content, but from a roleplay perspective it's really nice to have this option be there, and again it pops up a few times. If things start getting too dark and evil, you can kind of just say, hey no, I'm out. But if you do choose to free the Enclave members, they'll awake just as confused as you as to why they were asleep for so long, now realizing that several hundred years have passed. Although a short while later the Enclave will begin establishing a presence in the Commonwealth, most of this being of course thanks to work we'll do on some of those initial quests, before eventually you'll all relocate to a just offshore oil rig, which is going to serve as one of the main bases of the Enclave in Fallout 4. But once you get to this point and even meet a few new characters who were stationed at the oil rig for decades now, you get one of the coolest parts of this mod with the main story tie-ins. After you complete that introductory Remnants quest, which is largely just what was there with America Rising 1, you're going to be directed to Fallout 4's own story, because the plot of America Rising directly hooks hooks into the main story of Fallout 4. You'll need the Brotherhood of Steel to establish their foothold in the Commonwealth and even get that initial introduction to the Institute as you slowly uncover what they're really up to. But once you do that, the Enclave's going to call you back for more missions, and this is where things really kick into gear. You're going to do some really messed up stuff in the Commonwealth for the Enclave, and this does genuinely tie into some of the other Enclave lore from other games, but also expands on it. For example, there's a doctor here who's experimenting with the FEV virus, and you're going to have to capture live subjects from the Commonwealth for her to experiment on. And later on, you're able to see the results of her work, see what she did to those people or things, and the Enclave here is definitely continuing that mission of weaponizing the FEV virus to remove mutants from the world. The Brotherhood of Steel are, of course, the natural antagonists of the Enclave, and during your missions, you'll come up against them as well. In the earlier phases of the questline, these will be smaller scale engagements as the Brotherhood gets in our way, and later on, we even assault one of their locations to gain our own foothold for the Enclave in the Commonwealth. But as you progress through this totally new Enclave questline, you're going to find some large scale engagements between the Enclave and Brotherhood, and these are just a blast. You'll have tons of elite units in power armor, airdropping from vertibirds, and really just all-out chaos taking place in some totally new and introduced locations. If you've had a stockpile of weapon mods, which I'm sure many of you have had, and you're looking for something to do with them, this is the mod for you. There are quite a few occasions where all-out warfare is necessary here. And of course, the ultimate goal of the Enclave is to completely push the Brotherhood out of the Commonwealth, and this mod definitely gives you options around that. But of course, if you're not familiar with Fallout lore, the Enclave are the representatives of the old world America, the old government. And that does come into play at certain parts in the story, as they do reach out to other Enclave locations around the country as they try and form this new government. And as you can imagine, once this new government and the Enclave in the Commonwealth learn about the Institute and some of the technology they possess, they become a major player in the story as well. And I really love how this mod handled this, as it almost mimics our own experience in vanilla Fallout 4. The main Enclave leadership just woke up from cryosleep, exactly like we did, so you don't really know much about the Institute either. A part of the main story with this mod is a variant of Fallout 4's main story, where you encounter the synths for the first time and are kind of confused as to what on earth that actually is, and even further go into the Institute and start investigating as to what they're really all about. The big difference between vanilla Fallout 4 and this mod is you have the Enclave backing you throughout the entire process. They're doing their own research and have their own evil motives for uncovering more about the Institute and even getting some of their technology for themselves. So during this mod's questline, you'll have some pretty cool moments where you'll basically walk into a familiar main story mission from Fallout 4. You'll see the Institute openly fighting the Brotherhood, just like you would typically see if you sided with the Brotherhood or the Institute and would have to fight the opposing faction. But of course now it's unique because you see this fight going on, you see the mission unfolding, and you're arriving with the Enclave. It's almost like there's a third faction involved in a bunch of the conflicts that previously only had two, a new perspective on some of those familiar quests. And this is added super well, to the point where when you get to the stage of Fallout 4's main story where you have to set up the teleporter to go to the Institute, you'll have all of the other factions as options, and then the Enclave will be a new option on that quest. And it's not just the Fallout 4 story on the high level, it also gets to the personal side of your story in Fallout 4. The fact that you're looking for your son and your son was stolen by the Institute does come up. And there's actually an in-world, very lore-friendly reason for the general of the Enclave that you're largely reporting to throughout this mod to care about that. You're normally cold, crass, but when it comes to this particular issue, they do have a reason to care and be a bit more sensitive about it, and that was a really nice touch. The Enclave in a faction is very much so invested in finding out what's going on with the Institute, which is really nice. So often there are mods that are just trying to ignore or replace Fallout 4's core story, but instead this one's just expanding on it, hooking into it directly. And all along the way during this experience, there's going to be some major choices and decisions that you'll have to make. Things between the Enclave and the Brotherhood are pretty much just decided. They're enemies, they hate each other, and you can't really control that. But conversely, the relationship between the Enclave and the Institute you have far more control over. And since you kind of act as the envoy for the Enclave to the Institute, you can make some decisions about which direction this relationship goes in for some incredibly fun gameplay moments. America Rising 2 overall as an RPG was pretty on par with Fallout 4, in that there were a couple of big choices that would really branch out the story in one way or another, but the rest of it was pretty linear. Although that's not to say that there aren't some big big decisions to be made. There is one genuinely difficult decision you'll have to make in how the Enclave proceeds into the Commonwealth. Some Enclave members feel one way, while some other Enclave members feel a different way. Some of them don't have quite as extreme of views. And both of those are represented here, and you're going to have to make decisions about who to side with. And this mod does a really good job at the subtleties of evilness. Like all of a sudden, you're gonna get this doctor checkup for radiation exposure or some abnormalities about your body, which of course, if you had either of those, you might just be put down by the Enclave, or even just how Enclave members refer to and talk about ghouls and mutants. Their hatred and disdain is quite fundamental and consistently represented here. And this mod overall does a really great job at just recognizing that, yeah, these guys are evil. And you could even recognize as much in dialogue. Like sometimes they'll ask you to do something and you'll be like, oh, wait, what? That's really messed up. I'm not sure I can do that. Or alternatively, if you're fully on board, you could just say, yes, sir, and continue on with the mission. And what I found to be one of the things that made this mod truly rewarding is that you could really see the gradual buildup of this faction. You start off with a haphazard oil rig, but over time, this becomes well-manned and well-armed. As you complete missions for the faction, they're going to promote you. Yeah, sorry, you're not going to just become general right after the first quest. And as you get promoted through the ranks of the Enclave, you'll get a ton of nice rewards. Some unique weapons, new armors added, and even some more special features towards the end, like a personal player home, a settlement, and more. And this mod even has some tie-ins with other Enclave mods out there if you want all of that custom content. And overall, this mod just had a really nice quality to it. Most of the voice acting was really good, the main characters being exceptional, and there are lots of nice details, like when you rescue the Enclave members from the vault has more rust on it because this side wasn't nearly as well maintained, and the Enclave members themselves come out in special vault suits because of course, they're government VIPs, they wouldn't have the same vault suits as us. And best of all, especially for a fan-made mod, I didn't encounter a single bug while playing this one. I did use a fairly minimal load order, so that probably helped, but I progressed through this entire 10 or so hours story without one hitch. Every quest went right after the other. And overall, this mod is just phenomenal. I genuinely think this is going to be one of the best Enclave mods made for a Fallout game ever, because it really does maintain the Enclave for what they are, but also add some nuance to them. It's not trying to make the Enclave the good guys. And with how this directly hooks into Fallout 4's main story, it really feels like it opens up the RPG options. You can now beat Fallout 4 as an evil Enclave member, and levy some serious effects on the Commonwealth as a result. As I mentioned earlier in this video, tomorrow marks the 8-year anniversary of Fallout 4, and honestly, I can't think of a better time to jump in with a new playthrough. Perhaps Bethesda does end up announcing something around the next-gen patch finally, but at the very least, this mod is out and it serves as a free DLC that you could download right now. And if you are interested in enhancing the experience even further, check out this video, where I go over 5 more Fallout 4 overhaul mods, and pretty much all of them would actually pair really well with a new playthrough on America Rising 2.